I think just setting the standard from the beginning that you are their boss first and their friend second. And just because you may not spend every waking second with them, like if they go out, you may not join, doesn't necessarily mean that you don't like them as individuals. It's just you creating that barrier, because it's very challenging to be someone's friend and then wake up the next morning and tell them what to do or discipline them. And I think the most important part is that you are there to help them through those processes and discipline them and help them be a better version of themselves.
The best way I found to do this was I made office hours, and I know it's going to sound ridiculous, and I did keep my office hours pretty late, but I said after 8 p.m. you can no longer talk to me about anything AmeriCorps related, and like I made myself available between 5 and 8 to answer any questions or like help members with rep roles. But after 8 o'clock, if my member said, "Hey, I need this, like it's important," I'm sorry. Like, you know my hours, and I have my own things to do too, and you just have to stick to that. And whether if it's a simple question as to like, when are we going grocery shopping, you can say, I've made my office hours, and like ask your teammate, maybe they know, but I'm not going to talk about anything AmeriCorps related. I also was very fortunate to have a really good friend back home, and him and I chatted quite frequently, and just like he kept me on the loop of what's going on with my family and friends. And I called my mom, and I tried to call my mom and dad every week, but sometimes that slipped to every other week. But you just really, it's a lot of effort and continual effort to keep that line, because the second you let it waver, it's almost gone, and it's really hard to get that back.
Well, it's really hard in this program because you're kind of like a family, and so that it's really difficult to draw that line. But I would suggest like kind of letting them in, letting them know some things about you, but also reminding them that you're in charge. And then also something I find very important is mutual respect. So a lot of team leaders think that they deserve that respect just because they're a team leader, but to me you have to give respect to get it. And so I think letting all of your teammates know that you respect them will help them respect you a lot more.
I made sure I had non-negotiables in terms of my everyday life, which would be for me is like meditating, reading, working out, doing the things that I do as a human being to better myself. And then when I would do those things, I would understand that yes, I'm a team leader, and yes, I have 10 individuals I'm in charge of, but I'm also a human being who's trying to become a better person. So doing those things that I would do would remind me that it's two separate people.
Honestly, just taking time at the end of the workday to myself, going into my room, or maybe going for a walk, or just finding a quiet space to talk on the phone or read a book. Honestly, your team's gonna want to hang out with you probably all the time, and they're gonna ask, why do you hang out with us? But honestly, you need that alone time in order to separate yourself from your team and your personal life.
It was all about my demeanor, I think, and my approach to interacting with different people on my team. They could usually tell from my tone and my presence if I was taking things lightly and jokingly, or I was, in work mode. So they definitely could distinguish it, and I think that was, in essence, what helped.
I didn't. I didn't. It was really hard for me because I will admit I'm a workaholic, and so I don't think I had that separation between TL and just me as a person. I knew going into this role it was a 24/7 job, and that's how I took it. So I never had that separation.
I kind of just stayed in professional mode all year long and just figured I'll get back to personal life after the program's over.
What personal life?
Is there really a line to draw? They collide. So like how you're doing as a team leader and how you're doing as a person, they just start to blend together, and it's all one. It's just like team leader. And that's okay if that happens, if you can't always separate it. Don't feel bad because you can't. It's literally going to happen, so prepare yourself. But I think the best thing to do is just to create that little pocket of time for your personal space. Like, cut everything work related out, and it's just you. Like, whether it's for like 10 minutes a day, an hour, whatever it is, always find that pocket of time, and I think you'll remain mostly sane.
When we were on the work site and it had to do with paperwork, then I was TL Zach. But after work, or if people wanted to have a conversation or just wanted to catch up or just talk, then I was just regular Zach. I think the line is drawn. The line is wherever you put it, and you definitely can cross it and then go back. You just got to make sure you balance it out.
This is definitely something that towards the end of the year I started to realize that I didn't do as well of a job as I thought I did. I was more professional than personal to my team. My team calls me hard. Heartless, I think, was mentioned a couple times. I never really let my team get to know me or understand who I was or get to know me on a personal level for like a round and a half when I only had 2 rounds with them. Towards the end of the year, I started to realize that once I opened up more to them and I did let them get to know me on a personal level, a lot of them started responding better and respecting me more versus when I was just their team leader and I only let them see that portion of me. So I think there's definitely a balance, but finding that balance takes practice and trial and error. You're not going to do it perfectly right away. You might not figure it out until your team has graduated and left, and looking back you realize the mistakes that you made and that you could have been more open with them, and that maybe would have changed things, maybe it wouldn't have. But trial and error, and there's definitely let them see the real side of you, but also maintaining like professionalism too.
For me, this was really hard to define. I think so much of your time just is team leader time, even if it's your personal time, and they kind of just wrap into one. So I really did have a hard time defining that, and it was something that I kind of continually worked on. So just keep working at it.
I really tried to define times when we were in the A versus when we were not in the A. You know, when you're in the A, you're being intentional with your language, you're not swearing, you're not getting rowdy. And when you're out of the A, you can be a little bit more relaxed, you can have a little bit more of your own personality at play. I also tried pretty hard to make time for my people back home, which was really, really good practice for maintaining relationships over long distance, because when your members leave and graduate, some of them are going to want to maintain that relationship, and now you have a whole year of practice.
Well, I would have my family only contact me on my personal phone because they give you a government cell phone too. I didn't want to mix those two up. And also I wouldn't add core members on Facebook until the end of the year because I just didn't want to mix those two together, because I think keeping work spheres and personal spheres separate is important. And I feel like I did a good job of that. And that another thing is that a lot of people outside the program don't really understand what is going on. So it's also really your fellow team leaders are pretty much the only people that may understand what you're going through. So it pretty much works itself out.